in terms of its resources and cutting down on the things we send to landfill. We still get mountains of packaging and things that we just throw away. Very disposable society. In terms of agriculture, limit the use of chemicals and pesticides. Things like emissions, so naturally you would expect me to say this, but I flew here. And obviously things like how we reduce flying and where we can take things like train and reduce the emissions. So electric cars are now much more things. People own electric cars or hybrids. Have we got any electric car owners in? No one wants to admit to owning an electric car? No? Okay. So electric cars are becoming the more norm. You see lots of these rechargeable stations now. Carbon emissions we just mentioned, and stopping where we can, stopping travel. Obviously I'm an exception, because otherwise you just have a TV screen to look at me, and where's the value in that? So obviously where we can, though, we want to try to reduce our travel around the world to cut down on carbon emissions. I don't know, have you ever been told that there's something new coming up and it's a great opportunity for you? You ever been told that? It's a great opportunity, career opportunity for you. This will further and advance you as a professional procurement person. Did it work out when you were told? No. It's a lie, ladies and gentlemen, when you get told that. Somebody wants you to do something and they're selling it to you. But be careful when that happens. A chance for you to make a difference, they probably said. Put yourself on the map. Let everyone know what a fantastic leader you are. But as I say, it might mean you're being tricked when they do that, because they want you to fill a job. They want you to do the dirty work. They want you to do the things that they don't want to do. Do you know, I'm going to talk later about the language of procurement, but I don't know, do you get recruitment companies writing to you? Do you ever see those that come in the email? You ever get headhunters writing or saying, I don't know if you'd be interested in a job? And the language of recruitment companies. I have an amazing opportunity. Incredible company, going places. Just as they're writing that, somebody's leaving that company because they're fed up with it. But every job role I see is amazing, amazing opportunity. So always be a bit careful. However, I'm going to tell you a little story about something that came my way that really was an opportunity, an amazing opportunity to join a fantastic group of people and do a once-in-a-lifetime piece of work. So, and it utilized the 3 Ps. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about that story. And this was, and I know you've had your big sporting events, World Cup, etc. in South Africa, but this one was the Olympic Games. So my big opportunity to come and join this fantastic team and work in an amazing environment was, as I say, the London Organising Committee of the Olympic Games. So we had category management for that, because although we didn't have to make profit, we certainly didn't want to lose money, and it was taxpayers' money. So we set up category management, and there's some of the categories there. Some of them were very unique, as you can see. Booking singers, the band Coldplay, one example. The great Muhammad Ali came along, David Beckham. So booking these kinds of people, that was the artists and performance. In sports, there was things like buying javelins, buying horse jumping equipment. So very, very unusual requirements that you probably wouldn't normally get involved in your daily life. The word that they used was unprecedented. The whole thing was unprecedented as an event and some of the categories that we were managing. So security was one that I was heavily involved in. G4S, is that a name that bites fear into all of you as a supplier? G4S over here doing stuff? Now, either I've stunned you all into silence or you're massively, desperately hungry for lunch. So G4S were the company that worked on the security for the games. So security is the particular piece I'm just going to talk about. So this is how the procurement function was set up. And you will see that along the top, this is really the last speaker talked about the end-to-end line that repeats. But this is really what's going on here. A kick-off project, gathering information, developing the strategy, going out, developing the strategy, putting the specification together, sourcing and mobilizing the contract, putting the contract in to be contract managed. And in the case of someone like G4S, it was very much a highly complex, highly important category that needed a partnering, a relationship. And she was quite right when she said, it's not a soft, easy thing, these relationships. It's not about going out to dinner and spending your time in a very social environment. It's a very, very rigid relationship, what my old boss used to call highly tensioned relationship, where you're working with the vendor to mobilize the contract and manage the contract for the duration of the games. And by the way, the games, any event of the World Cup is the same, doesn't just begin here and end there 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. It has lots of rehearsals, it has lots of trial days, etc. So it went on for a good year in small bites until the big event itself. But anyway, you'll see coming down it, words like sustainability cut across it, diversity and inclusion. So as well as commercial, as well as what I've put there is the P word, profit. But sustainability, we can see how that links into the second P, the planet. And diversity and inclusion, making sure that we recruited, that we had people on the organising committee that really demonstrated diversity and inclusivity. So just a little bit of background about it. I'm not saying you'll all run off and work for a big event, what they call the greatest show on earth, but it's useful to just think about some of these things that we're delivering in the context of our jobs in the next role you move into. How can we make ourselves add value? How can we be more than just the P for profit? What can we do to get ourselves across people as well and planet as well? So in this particular case, there'd been a big uplift in, you can imagine, security. You all know we live in a volatile world. You all understand that. So security is a massive issue for anybody now, whatever the occasion. and change requirements had trebled, and this is what it meant. It meant more uniforms, more rations, meaning meals to feed people, somewhere to put all the security guards, training for them, etc., etc. So we already had a lot of pushback from government about budget and resource constraints that we had to keep justifying, that we had to keep going back to Treasury to explain. And we had, at the background of this, an immovable deadline. A deadline. We couldn't ask the Queen, and we couldn't ask, I think it was James Bond actually, what's his name, Daniel Craig, who escorted the Queen into the Olympic Stadium. We couldn't say to them, can we put the games back a few weeks because we're not quite ready yet. So we had time pressures, we had an immovable deadline. It was a kind, I couldn't ask these two lovely gentlemen here to join me on my team because they would probably say, why would I leave my job and come to you? You're a temporary organisation. It's a project. So that made it a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging. But the aims of the Olympics were all around the 3 Ps. They'd set themselves up for people and planet. They talked a lot about the stadiums, about something called legacy, that all of the infrastructure we were doing in parts of the UK, I don't know, we had a quick reference to football this morning. I don't know if there's anyone in the audience who knows a club called West Ham. There's silence on that, and quite rightly so where West Ham are concerned. But West Ham are in an unfashionable part of London, meaning the east side of London, and that was an area that was quite deprived and needed regeneration. So that's where the focus of the new Olympic Stadium, which is where the club now, the football club now play. So there was a lot of talk about legacy, about what we could put in place for the community, what would happen to all the accommodation we were going to build for Usain Bolt and some of the other athletes, what was going to happen to the velodrome and to the Olympic swimming pool. So all of these things were talked about, and all of these things were considered as legacy to enrich the local community and to reinvest, to regenerate that part of London which was a little bit run down and deprived. So we had some people in the business. I said to you this morning that not everybody loves us. I know it's hard to believe. Not everybody sees the world from your point of view, from Procurement's point of view. Now, I can see that there's even more people gradually making their way to Burger King and KFC. So don't worry, people. The clock is ticking here. I can see the time. I will speak faster. Just hold on to your stomachs, belt them up tightly. We'll be there, we'll get there, and we'll have a great lunch. So we had challenging stakeholders. Not everybody saw the world the same way as procurement and supply chain experts. Not everybody wanted to abide by your budget or to have, we heard about stationery, I think it was, if only we could get that standardized, a standardized specification.